Welcome back. We are continuing a fascinating conversation, terrifying, but fascinating conversation with Dr. Peter Vincent Pry, one of our country's foremost experts on matters nuclear, as well as the threats they represent to the rest of us. Peter, I did want to pivot from the Iranian problem, serious as it is, to another that you've spent most of your professional life warning about and working on, and that is the vulnerability of our electric grid. I thought you were going to say that your concern was that the Iranians, if they have a nuclear weapon, would use it to detonate an electromagnetic pulse over this country. And I know that is a concern, but talk, if you would, about what is the broader context at the moment for something that most Americans take for granted, which is that they will have endless supplies of electricity when we're being told, in fact, we may see blackouts across this country because of shortfalls in electric production or distribution for various reasons.
Right. Uh, I saw an article recently, and I had to kind of agree with the headline. You know, it was something to the effect, "Why worry about a high altitude EMP attack? When we are basically destroying ourselves." And our energy policy, especially under this administration, is doing our adversaries' job for us. You know, and previous administrations also deserve blame. The failure to build new nuclear power plants, the failure to build new hydroelectric plants, and new technologies to generate technology. Our country is growing, and the demand for electricity grows and grows, but the infrastructure to provide that, is decades old and isn't keeping pace with demand. And now we're adding onto the burden of our electric grid so-called green renewables, like the solar and wind farms, which have no chance, no realistic technological chance of meeting the enormous demands we're playing. The Biden administration wants us to transition to electric vehicles, for example,
Yes.
which is going to put enormously strains on the grid. Even if they weren't doing that, solar and wind, not only can't they meet the demand, but they will destabilize the big grid the way they did in Texas. When the ice storm, the wind doesn't blow all the time, the sun doesn't always shine, and it makes the grid highly unstable, and even more vulnerable to the kind of attacks I've been worried about: EMP, cyber attacks, physical sabotage that can cause a nationwide blackout. Well, we won't need to be attacked by an enemy if we keep going down this road. Well, as you noted, they're actually predicting that we're going to end up having blackouts this summer, and those are self-inflicted wounds because of these bad policies.
Yes. I wonder, Peter, if we start having blackouts, and these are not to be confused with the intermittent interruptions, which all of us have experienced at one point or another, despite the overall incredible reliability of the grid by virtue of thunderstorms or trees falling on power lines or what have you. By and large, the power is on. If that is not the case, would you anticipate that this will catalyze at long last the kinds of steps that are needed to make the grid more resilient, as well as have increased capability to meet the needs that we're talking about? Or will it take something worse to propel us into these sorts of corrective actions that you and Bill Graham's commission and so many others of us have been warning about for quite some time?
I think that depends, Frank, on whether we still have free and fair elections in this country anymore, and whether a future administration can come in that cares about the American people more than about green ideology. If this administration continues, and the left keeps its death grip on the Democrat Party and the death grip on America and the American people, no, I don't think it'll matter. I mean, they want us to live with inflation now. They want us to live with these incredible high gas prices now as patriotic sacrifices, and they're secretly pleased with the high gas prices because that's part of the green agenda. You know,
Right.
the Even as Russia,
Drive us out of fossil fuels, as they say.
right? They are doing things that are counterintuitive in terms of rationalism and common sense and logic, for ideological reasons. So I'm not persuaded that, I think they would try to make the case that that's the new normal, that we need to
Mm.
look at California. California will be the future of the country, unless the Democrat Party changes, which is unlikely, or unless you can bring into power again political leaders who care about the American people.
That's the crux of the matter. I think there's no doubt about it. But Peter, before that happens, or hopefully as a prelude to it happening, would you address one other piece of this, which is just infuriating to me, and I'm sure maddening to you as well? And that is vulnerabilities that we have built into the grid through techniques, for example, of importing from communist China, by some estimates, 300 of these large high voltage transformers that are really the critical backbone and arguably the greatest vulnerability of the grid. This seems insane. Is it true, first of all? And is there anything we can do about it in the short term?
It is true. Uh, Unconfirmed but highly credible reports have said that they investigated at least one of these transformers and found a back door in it so that the transformer could be shut down potentially remotely. Even if that is not true, it's extremely imprudent to be buying transformers, and I would add SCADAs, so supervisory control and data acquisition systems. We've imported thousands of those. We don't know how many. But when your adversary has designed these things, he will know how to shut it down because we haven't
Right.
designed them. They understand the systems that are on our critical infrastructure better than we do. That's like
Yeah.
relying on China to build our aircraft carriers or fighter aircraft, and
Even worse in a way because it's the power grid for the entire nation. Peter Pry, we have to leave it at that for the moment. Your expertise as well as your service to our country in all of these areas is vital and so appreciated. I know you'll keep it up, and I hope you'll come back to us again soon. I hope the rest of you will come back to us again tomorrow, same time, same station, better equipped to help us in protecting the country we love. And then I hope you'll go forth and multiply.